So I'm a nutrition coach. I live and breathe a healthy lifestyle, but I have not always had an easy ride. In this raw, unfiltered session, I share some of the hardest battles I have faced in body image, eating behaviors, and negative thought patterns, and how I've overcome them over the years at the age of 29 to be in the strongest physical shape I have ever been, living out a career I love, with a loving relationship with food, tools I use every single day to protect my peace, stay in my lane, and live a healthy, abundant life. I talk about my theatre school background, growing up in the rise and launch of social media, the comparison trap, calorie counting and fasting, binge drinking and loathing, exercising just to stay slim as punishment as opposed to out of enjoyment, a dysregulated period cycle and imbalanced hormones. My aim for you in this session is to feel liberated by my journey and inspired to take similar steps and build them into your own life, integrate them in one step at a time, to become the healthiest version of you without restriction and real acceptance and love for yourself. So let's get to it. Okay, so welcome. Lovely to have you here. I'm sure others may join a little bit through or watch the catch-up session. But this is our very first live session as part of our new challenge phase, which is food freedom and self-love, which I'm really excited about. And the reason I created this challenge phase around November, December time is because I felt like around Christmas time, when, we're constantly surrounded by food, it can bring up a lot of maybe negative thought patterns or, conversations with family members that can trigger us. And I just really would love you to, enter this winter wholesome family phase feeling really in control, for one thing, around food, but also feeling real joy and love and looking at food in a way of it bringing people together as opposed to, just reaching our aesthetic goals. And I am going to be sharing a really open and honest session today to hopefully you can relate to. Even though I'm a wellness professional, I'm a nutrition coach, I also have a personal training qualification, I still battle with this. And this is something that I have come a long way. When I say battle, I probably wouldn't call it a battle anymore, because I've come a long way. But it's something that over the years I've had to actively work on to get myself to a place of what I would call neutrality. And I think just especially in today's society and the media and the rise of Ozempic, it can be really easy to just sort of slip back into negative thought patterns and negative relationships with our food and our body. So I hope you can resonate with it. I'd love you to, throughout, if there is something that you can relate to, or you want to share a story, please do so, because I think it will help everyone, because we're all at different stages in our lives. And if you can help just one person, it would make a huge difference. Okay, so a work in progress, my food and self-love story. So we're going to cover about 5 or 6 different topics today. So I'm going to talk about my journey, also go into my hypnotherapy experience. We did actually have Laura, my hypnotherapist, on to deliver a session as part of Harriet's Health Club a while ago now. It must have been about 6 months ago now. So if you're interested in hypnotherapy, I strongly recommend you go back and look at and watch that session. It also has a mini hypnotherapy in there for you, so you can do it at home. We're also going to have a little bit of group reflection. I'm going to share some of my go-to rituals, the version of food freedom that I embody every day, and also the affirmation that you chose of the week, based off your weekly wellness plan. I'd love us to openly share what that is and why, so we can really finish this week on a strong note and, start this next challenge phase feeling really empowered and focused towards our goals. Okay, so my body image struggle. Well, for many of you don't know, I went to full-time theatre school in London from the age of 11. So I was getting on the train into central London at 11, and following my dreams to be in musical theatre. And I absolutely loved it, but it come with a certain pressure, as I'm sure you are familiar with what you've seen in the media around theatre students. I was in a leotard and tights twice a week, 2 days out of the week, and then the other 3 days were like the academic days where I wore normal school uniform. But you can imagine that pressure and like the exposure that you're constantly on show, and dance teachers are telling you to be a certain size, and I think it was drilled into me fairly young at such a tender age when my hormones were all over the place to be smaller. And I was the launch of social media. So I remember Tumblr, if anyone remembers Tumblr. If you're a millennial like me or that side of millennial, you probably will. And I just remember it being filled with, really thin women and men, and it just was programming your mind to want that, which also then had a real comparison trap that I led into. And from the picture on the right was probably when I was at my absolute smallest, and I was obsessed with having a really small waist and just really not eating enough, skipping meals at school. And then the picture on the left, I'm on a holiday in Dubai, funny enough, when I was 17. So this is about 12, 13 years ago. And I was with my friends and I'm covering my stomach on a group photo. And I have such compassion for that younger version of me that was so like wanting to be smaller, but also like shameful of her body. It's just, and that was obviously because of everything that I had gone through with theatre school and social media. So I was calorie counting, I was fasting, and I was probably fasting into my early 20s. And this had a real long-term effect on my hormones. I won't ever be able to pinpoint exactly what dysregulated my cycle. I've been open with many of you ladies about how I've had quite a dysregular period. But I believe it was down to fasting and doing really extreme CrossFit workouts and surviving on black coffee until about midday. And I just think the pressure that I put on my body and, ignoring all of its signs and signals, I think that was a real contributing factor to the loss of periods that I experienced. I viewed exercise more as punishment, as opposed to enjoyment, which is obviously the complete opposite now. I would binge drink at the weekend and then, eat loads of carbs, and then have like real self-loathing come Sunday and Monday, like every sort of young person that would binge drink. But I really then did hate myself and then want to punish myself. And I think all of this, as I said, really contributed to a dysregulated cycle. So feels quite of a negative note to start on. And I hope this hasn't triggered too much within you. And it does feel like a very raw subject for me. But the more I talk about it, I think it will give you girls the permission to, be open about that past version of yourself, because a lot of your behaviors now that are playing out are a result of what we went through as children, teenagers, early 20s, even, a few years ago, if you're in your 30s and 40s. So it's all playing a part. And if you can be really open and honest, like saying out loud some of the things you might be shameful about, like it takes the power away from it instead of, just like pushing it down and brushing under the carpet. And this will lead me on to when I talk a little bit about hypnotherapy as well. So the now. So to bring things a bit more positive, again, I'm not a finished article. I don't intend to be. But I predominantly focus on food quality and nourishment over calories. When I look at a pack of food or something that's got an ingredients list, I'm going to be looking at the ingredients list first. I'm not going to be looking at the calories or the macros. Like that is my focus. If it's coming from whole foods, I know it's good for me. I'm also eating when I'm hungry. So I have my standard routine. I eat breakfast about 8, 9 o'clock. I have lunch about midday. Then I might have a snack about 4. And then I have my dinner about 6 or 7, or 3, 4 snack. So I tend to have 3 main meals and then one small snack a day. And I don't fast. I do fast overnight for about 12 to 14 hours. But I know that fasting isn't right for me. It can be in some cases, but I don't recommend it to most of the women that I work with because I do think it can wreak havoc on our hormones. Also, this is a big one, letting go of perfection. my idea of perfect is going to be completely different to anyone else's. So I don't like, what am I trying to aspire to be perfect? So instead of, looking at a photo of myself or catching myself in the mirror and not feeling like I look absolutely perfect, I then try to quickly correct myself of like how healthy and strong I feel in my body. And as you can see, like the bottom right picture compared to the top right photo, in my opinion, is much better. It's healthier, it's stronger, it's fitter, and it's capable and it's womanly. And I'm never gonna be a stick thin Victoria's Secret model, and I don't ever aspire to be. I love feeling strong and healthy. I also unfollow Instagram pages or, social media pages that I feel triggered by. And there are many out there that I'm not saying they're purposely trying to trigger you, but at the same time, if that's causing an impact on the way you feel in a negative way, then I would recommend, muting people or unfollowing. So I exercise to get stronger and to feel good. I used to never take a rest day. Now, I'll go for a lovely calm walk on my rest day. I might do a bit of yoga. I really do listen to my body when I need rest, and I have at least 1 to 2 rest days a week. Mindful drinking is a big one because obviously, as we know, alcohol, like sadly, it has no nutritional benefit. It is toxic for us. But I'm never prepared to give up champagne or red wine. Honestly, I think those are the two drinks that I would stick by, and I don't care about spirits or anything, but those are my two drinks. And I am very mindful in that. It's usually for an occasion, but I also love the clarity I feel when I haven't drunk for a period of time. I have more balanced hormones and I'm in sync with my cycle, which has been a real long journey for me. And I'm still definitely at a regulation stage, but I have made humongous progress in that. So that is hopefully a little positive on how far I've come in my journey. So some of my most life-changing habits or experiences are is these four things. And journaling, I know we can easily back this off and it's like, oh, like, yeah, you should journal. But honestly, when I look back at everything I've journaled and the entries I've journaled, it's so comforting to see I've either achieved what I've wanted or, my mindset has changed. So don't think of a journal of actually always acting like instant relief in the moment because it may not. Sometimes it does, when you brain dump everything, but actually use it as a tool of reflection as well to see how far you've come. Like, as I've shared with a lot of you, as of yesterday, I moved into a new apartment that I've been actively manifesting for the last 6 to 8 months. And when I first moved to Dubai, I never thought it was possible to live on my own in this area. I moved out with my ex-boyfriend, we broke up, then I got a flatmate and I lived in an area quite far out. Whereas this area is one of the most desirable areas in Dubai. It's such a lovely green community. There's lots of lovely parks. And I never thought that I'd be able to do this by myself. And I've done it. So I know I'm leading a little bit into manifestation, classic me. But in my journal, I've looked back recently and I'm writing it constantly, constantly like my Dubai Hills apartment, I'm going to live there. I'm going to live there. So you could also interpret this with your body goals, and like write it out as if you're already achieving it. Like, I am in the healthiest, strongest body that I'm most proud of. Really speak that into your journal or aloud, which is then moves me on to positive self-talk and affirmations. That saying of the first sign of madness is when you talk to yourself. I probably would agree with that in a sense that I probably am a little, people would probably think of me as slightly mad because of how in touch I am with spirituality and how much I believe in manifestation and things that logically don't make sense. But I feel like my life is proof that I can actually, achieve these big, wild things that I never thought were possible for many people. And speaking them out loud is a sure way to reinforce to yourself. It's just that it's that encouragement. Like if I've got a big meeting or if something's really stressing me out, I will talk to myself. I'll say, look, you've got this H. You've got through 100 of your worst days. You're gonna get through the rest. And something I do every day is, when I'm moisturizing after the shower, is I tell myself how like proud I am of my body and how it works for me and how it moves for me every day, how I can nourish myself, and how strong it is. So don't think you're crazy for speaking out loud. I actively encourage it because you are reinforcing to yourself what you want and who you are or who you're striving to become. Acceptance. So this is a big one, and I think this definitely lends itself to what I said around letting go of perfection. Because what even is perfect? No one is perfect because everyone's idea of perfect is different. So just having acceptance for who you are and your body and the changes it goes through. I don't know about you girls, but when I'm in my luteal phase and on my period, I have body dysmorphia because my body changes so much. But I'm still navigating that journey a little bit because I haven't had a period for so long. But I have to have a little bit of acceptance that my body is doing an incredible thing by having a period. And I'm sure the mums in the group have gone through this at extreme levels, when having babies. But having that acceptance for your body and what it does for you. And of course, hypnotherapy, which I'm going to explain a bit about. And this doesn't seem to mean that you all need to invest into a hypnotherapist because I know that is a big investment and a big commitment. I'm going to provide you with simple ways that I support my manifesting wellness expansion ladies. So the ladies that are in my one-to-one group program, including Vari, about recording your own mini audios to rewire your brain. It's a really simple way that you can basically replicate what you experience in hypnotherapy and just weave it into your daily routine. So I love this image on the left because it's post-it notes on your mirror, just constant reminders. Personally, I'm someone that gets quite overstimulated by loads of colors, so I probably couldn't have it like that, but I would have maybe little notes on my phone, on my screensaver. Right now, on my screensaver, I've got a picture of my vision board, and then I've got the universe rewards resilience. I'll show you. Hopefully, it will focus. So that's what I keep on my phone because recently I have had to be really resilient to the stresses that I've gone through to get into this apartment, which I won't bore you with. But the universe rewards resilience, and I have that on my screensaver. So even little ways you can reinforce it. So if this is about, self-love or food freedom, maybe it's I love and accept my body for what it is, or I love feeling healthy, happy, and strong. Just something really positive and motivating for you as a constant reminder. Okay, so my hypnotherapy journey, you're probably thinking, why this is the background of a sunny holiday in somewhere like Greece. But I'm going to share how a defining moment when I was 8 years old on holiday with family shaped the way that I viewed my body for decades. And now the tools that I use to rewire my brain. So when I first started having hypnotherapy, it was actually for heartbreak, that a really difficult time that I was going through. That's how I ended up working with this hypnotherapist. And then I started to work with her longer term, and we delve into a few different subjects. So one was my money mindset and financial abundance. The other one was body image. And then another one was about my hormones and things like that. So we worked on like four different core subjects that I found kept coming up for me that I really wanted to reprogram to bring more abundance into my life. So we went back whilst I was under hypnosis, and a scene flagged up into my brain or my mind of when I was 8 years old in Portugal on holiday with my family. And at the time, I have two older sisters anyway. And Jessie, my middle sister, so they're both older than me, but she's about 4 years older than me. She's always been really petite. She's 5'2", she's teeny tiny, and just naturally slimmer and smaller than me. My uncle threw Jessie in the pool, and then I went, "Do me, do me." And my uncle went, "Oh, effing hell, you're heavy," when he went to lift me. I was a little bit chubby when I was a kid. I was only about 7 or 8. And I remember sobbing my heart out to my mum crying, screaming, telling my uncle I hated him. And I actually ended up working for my uncle later in life. I have a really good relationship with my uncle, probably the closest out of my siblings, actually. And I opened up to him about this a few months ago when it come up. And that throwaway comment, honestly, had basically shaped the way I viewed myself from then. There were a couple of other scenes that come up, but I would say there are maybe two or three main things that paved the way in how I wanted to basically make myself smaller, which is sad, but at the same time, I also am grateful for it because my interest in fitness and health sort of come out of that. So it, like, being brutally honest, maybe it didn't maybe when I first started training in the gym or being a fitness instructor, maybe it didn't come from, always just wanting to be the healthiest. Maybe it was driven by aesthetics, but now it's led me into the most nourished place ever because I'm actually supporting people to feel good from within and supporting them with their mindset. So it's funny how things work out, but I think it's what helped led or paved the way for my career now. So we opened up that scene and I talked to my hypnotherapist through it. And she then, supported me and comforted me in the moment and said, look, you were a child and you was completely in your rights to feel upset about that, and sort of just gave me permission to feel upset. And then I went through like a forgiving. So I then, after the session, I wrote a letter forgiving my uncle. I didn't actually give it to him in the end, but like, having that forgiveness. And then she recorded an audio for me that essentially helped rewire my brain. And I listened to that for 21 days. So it was all about the acceptance I have for my body, how grateful I am for it, how other people's opinions aren't going to, make a negative impact on me. And it was just a really real positive audio, about 20 minutes long. And I listened to that every night before I fell asleep, or every morning. I would set my alarm slightly early, put it on and listen to it whilst your brain is still in that subconscious, because that's when you're most susceptible to absorbing information. So that was a real core part of my hypnotherapy journey. And every time that I have a few moments of, not feeling as good in myself, I will go back and listen to that audio. So, as I said, this isn't something you need to completely invest into, but this is something you could do yourself. So, if body image is something you're battling with, or food freedom or self-love, what we're working through, maybe write yourself a little paragraph about how you want to feel and listen to it. And with my clients, so obviously Vari with one-to-one, I can record them for you as well if you don't like listening back to your own voice, because I know a few of you don't. I've had a couple of clients that don't like listening to their own voice, so I recorded on their behalf. So that's a little bit of an insight into my journey and where it all stemmed from. And you're probably thinking now, like, when was my like defining moment in all aspects of life? It doesn't always have to be around, body image in this area. But unlocking that and, opening up and healing it and forgiving yourself and showing compassion to your younger self is a really healthy way of moving through this. Okay, so I would like you now to reflect, either pop it in the chat or come off mute and share what word, or maybe you have another word that isn't featured here, that you would like to feel in your body. I think for me right now, it's energized. Like, my energy is so crucial in what I want to build for my business, in how I want to show up in Dubai at events. So energize is probably my main core goal right now. So where are you ladies? Where would you sit in this? Energize. Great. Okay. What part of your body are you most grateful to? This doesn't even have to be like a limb. It could be an organ. It could be your brain. It could be your heart. Okay, so self-love is a lifelong journey, and I've put this image here of, strength and reinforcing strength, strong over skinny. And I would be lying if I said that I was a finished article and that I'm completely happy with myself. We all have hang-ups. But when I look back at my past, I know I've come so, so far. And I have to constantly remind myself of how strong and healthy my body is and how privileged I am. And I really want you all to hopefully have that mindset, despite what you might have these hang-ups about. Let's focus in on what you are happy about in your body and what you do love about it, whether that's an organ or whether that is a physical attribute. Keep those front of mind because where attention goes, energy flows. So if you channel your energy towards the positives about your body, the rest of it will follow suit. So keep that front of mind. So some of my go-to rituals of how I practice this on a day-to-day basis, I hope will inspire you ladies to also do the same. So every evening after my shower, I take time to body brush. I always encourage body brushing to help with detoxification. Also, it supports like cellulite and things like that, and just dryness of your skin. So I always take the time to body brush and massage my body, and I speak aloud how grateful I am about my body parts. Whilst doing that. And I try to do it like as slow and like massaging as possible, as opposed to like rushing through it like it's another task on my to-do list. Eating slowly, mindfully, and savoring my food. This is also obviously going to help with me feeling more full and satisfied from eating. And it helps me develop a real loving relationship with food and that moment. Journaling the things I love about myself or I'm proud of gives you that positive reinforcement. So, if I'm having a day where I'm feeling a bit down on myself, I had a bad day, things aren't going my way, or, I'll write down all the things that have gone right, all the things that I am happy and proud of. It instantly makes you feel better. Every morning, my feet touch the floor. I hug myself and I speak aloud how grateful I am for a comfortable bed, a night's sleep, and my healthy body. That is the first thing I do before I check my phone. I've shared with a lot of you about this, but I try not to look up at my phone after I have got up, brushed my teeth, done my skincare, gone to the gym, or gone for a walk. I try not to look at my phone until after that has happened. So at least an hour and a half, 2 hours after waking. And I know it's really hard, especially because I have my fitness program on an app. So I have to actually go into my phone and not look at my notifications. But I keep my phone on do not disturb. And 9 times out of 10, I keep that rule because you could get an email, you could get a WhatsApp that just instantly triggers you and sets your day off to a bad routine. Keep those 2 hours, at least an hour to yourself. That is a sacred time of the day for you to just, calm your mind, lower your cortisol when it's at its highest, and just really set your intentions for the day. I am always, always, always visualizing. This is something that I've done, to manifest living here. But also I'm always visualizing myself as the healthiest, strongest, wealthiest version of myself, because those three things are what I feel like lead to happiness, fulfillment. I could go on and on and on. Healthiest, strongest, most fulfilled, most loved, joyful. And I'm constantly keeping her at the front of my mind. This isn't about not living in the present. Of course, I definitely want you ladies to, live in the present. But at the same time, we need to have an equal balance of, enjoying life and being present, but also if our present life isn't currently bringing us the joy we want, we need to constantly remind ourselves of our journey and where we're going and who we're leading towards. Okay, so I'm now going to go through about 5 things, and I would love to hear how you ladies might be currently advocating or presenting with food freedom in your life. These are just a few examples. So when I go out for dinner, I look at that as a treat. If I'm going out for dinner, once or twice a week, it's a treat, right? But I know that a large burger and chips is not going to make me feel good. It's not it's not actually a choice for me anymore. Don't get me wrong, I would have the odd burger here and then, but most of the time I'm going to have something that is equally satisfying, but also, a bit of a treat at the same time. Like the burger and the chips is not going to make me feel good after, but the green salad isn't going to satisfy me. So instead, I'm going to go for a happy medium. Maybe I'll go for some sea bass. And if I fancy some chips, I'll get some chips on the side and get some salad and veggies with it. So it's finding that happy medium and looking at a menu and like, what is that balance here? Like, where can I still get my nourishment, but where can I still enjoy and savor this moment that I'm having? So that is how I feel like I'm executing food freedom when I go out to eat. Cravings. This is a big one. But instead of, just giving into cravings for the sake of it, when maybe you feel like it's not going to serve you long term, I remind myself that I can have that food at any time. Like I know how chocolate tastes. I've tasted chocolate a million thousand times. I mean, don't, that's definitely not a phrase. That's definitely not the right word of saying it. But it's always going to be available to me. We are very fortunate women that we all have an income. We all have a roof over our heads. We can all go into a food shop nearby and pick whatever we want. So that is having an abundant mindset, which is what we have. Okay. It's always going to be available. So instead of just, giving into cravings when we know there is a time and a place, but just for the sake of it, you want to have a slight bit of balance around food. This is a big one that I definitely, spending the summer in the UK, really did trigger me a lot, if I'm honest, around living with my sister and my mum and my dad, who I absolutely adore to the end of the earth. But they are still stuck in quite old-fashioned conversations around food habits, and like they'll be weighing themselves and talking about it, and or can't eat that because of XYZ. And I find that quite triggering. And I used to now I just take myself away, and I don't engage in it, essentially, because I don't think it's a healthy thing to engage in. So I actively will not participate in these conversations that I feel triggered by, and I'll just take myself away. So viewing food not only as a way to nourish my body, but for special moments with loved ones, comfort and joy. So, instead of just thinking of food as like as fuel, it isn't fuel. It's family, it's joy, it's love, it brings people together, it's experiences. And I really do have that approach with most meals that I enjoy. And letting go of rules. And, if you fancy a sweet treat on a Tuesday, um, have that, and that'll be better than going all out on the weekend because you feel like you've been good all week. This is the cycle that I find a lot of people go into when they're trying to either lose weight or eat healthier, is that they won't eat anything naughty or a treat or sugary Monday to Thursday, but then on the weekend comes, they go all out and then they live with regret. So you're actually better off, if you do fancy something, you are going out for dinner on a Tuesday, like have it and just have a more balanced approach. Is there any that you ladies would like to add to this? Okay. Oh, Vicky. And I think as having these conversations with people like us as women and the rest of the women that are in Harriet's Health Club, like we're quite tapped into this. Like we're talking about this. We want to better ourselves. We want to become better people, right? And the more we can help those in our lives that aren't exposed to this all of the time, the better. So like we can do our part by, educating people softly, and, just like if people do slightly trigger you or say something, just, take them aside or just say, I'd really appreciate we don't talk about this. Like, I find it, what I've noticed is my cousins who are Gen Z, so they're 21 and 23, they are like, they will not hold back,
Wow.
on like being, when they hear conversations about people's weight on telly and stuff, they will be like, you can't talk about this. So I do think it's changing, and I think it is healthy. And we kind of need to remove that dogmatic approach towards, how we should all eat, because it's also personalized anyway. So what I touched on at the end here about, having that treat on a Tuesday because you fancy it, instead of, waiting to the weekend to go all out. This is what I see sometimes with clients, the one on the left, eating really, really healthy and clean and probably quite boring Monday to Thursday. And then the weekend comes and, go all out, and then you kind of live with regret and then start again on Monday. So an ideal situation would be, on a Monday, you have a bit of balance. You across the week, if you do want a couple of glasses of wine at the weekend, if you want to go to the cinema, like all of these foods fit, but it is, not removing those rules, because what you'll find is if you remove those rules, you'll just eat more intuitively. So yeah, I'd just like you to bear that in mind of having a more balanced approach. So finally, in your weekly wellness plan this week, I listed a few words of what your self-love theme could be for the week. So there are obviously the list could be endless, but acceptance, courage, joy, self-trust, growth, and gratitude. So I'd love to know what word has been your word of the week and why. Or if there's any, if you haven't done it yet, it's fine. You can just let me know what speaks to you.
And that's been
Good,
helping.
good.
Just
I want to pick up on the word of what you said, set up, because I listened to something the other day and it was like, instead of viewing the setbacks as a setback, look at it as a setup
yeah.
towards what is meant for you. So all of these setbacks are just leading you to what is right for you. And you're so right in terms of gratitude. Like even today, although I've been absolutely over the moon to be in here, even today I've had little, negative beliefs crop into my mind. And I've just had to quickly bring myself back and say, no, I'm not going to let that pollute my mind as over what could be a really beautiful time of my life that I'm really proud of. And, I'm not going to let it happen. I'm going to be really grateful for what I am right now. And, the problems or the challenges, I can deal with them at another time. Okay, lovely girls. Mine is self-trust because without self-trust, I wouldn't have taken on this commitment. As you probably know, I was considering going back to the UK, but I've decided to take a bet on myself and, trust that I'm meant to be here and that everything will work itself out as long as I'm living in alignment, living authentically. So self-trust is something that I'm really homing in on. And one thing I shared on my Instagram earlier is a manifestation expert slash coach, and she was saying how, you are solely responsible for the way your life plans out. No one's going to come and rescue you. And I think if I'm being honest, I kind of felt like that. I'd been in relationships throughout my like, late teens till as of 18 months ago. And this is the longest time I've been single now. And I think I always kind of in the back of my mind expected, to meet someone and that be my safety blanket. Whereas now it's like fully confronted me like, no, I am fully responsible for how I choose to live my life and what I choose to create. So leaning into that self-trust has been pivotal for now.